And we're going to have some time to share some memories about Miss Snyder at the end of there we go, at the end of the program. And yeah, so we're glad to have y'all here. If you don't have a newsletter and don't know our plans, I forgot to write anything down for what the next program is. I'm drawing a complete blank. There's newsletters downstairs. It'll tell you when our next program is. The banquet. That's going to be the big thing in September. So we're selling tickets now, I think, and just start getting your tickets and be ready for that. All right, so this is Wendy Minnick, and she will take it from here.
Thank you. Thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. We must all love Ms. Amy Snyder, right? Raise your hand if you had her for school.
There's some people back there.
Yeah, you had her. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
One of the last. Yeah. One of the last.
Yeah, it was in. When did she retire?
66. Yeah.
I was in her class in 1961.
Okay.
I was 6 years old.
Were you before or after David Updegraff?
David and I went through school as long as he was in my class.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I was going to tell a little story there, but.
Sure.
Okay. I will say that she was going to retire. David Updegraff was a special needs child. He had cerebral palsy. He had problems with his speech.
Louder.
He had problems with his speech and walking. And he was a deciding factor of why she didn't retire, and she requested him in her class. And so I did say in the newspaper, she was the first teacher that I know who practiced inclusion. And she liked saying that David never took anything from the students time-wise, and they never took any time from him. It just worked so well, and she was just very honored to have him. Not to say he was honored to have her too. So that's the story of David. I'll get to that. We are going to begin. Teaching was Amy's reason for living. She became a teacher, librarian, Sunday school teacher, missions leader in the Methodist Church, and a civic leader in Apollo. Two things that never changed in her life were the little ones and her teaching. Amy was born May 28, 1900, to Harry and Nellie. She had an older brother, Harold, and two younger sisters, Thelma and Dorothy, who they called Dottie. She lived with her family in Wilkinsburg until 1904, and that's when Harry and his father moved the entire family to Homer City. They bought an old hotel, and they made it into a general store. The book that I'm taking this from was written by Ronald Everett, and it says in his book.
Yeah, there's the book right there.
I have a copy. You have it? Okay. Harry's pleasing manner was good for business, and at the age of 4, Amy was also good for business. She helped customers find items. She was always polite and kind to everyone. And when she was not busy, she sat on a box, and she always had a book in her hand. And even before she could read, she pretended to read that book. Or she had a baby doll. Between 1904 and 1906, Homer City was hit with a severe epidemic of scarlet fever. I don't know if any of you know that, but it was so severe, it took young and old, and many of the people just never recovered. Amy's Aunt Rebecca Mullen and cousin Agnes Mullen came from Apollo to Homer City to reason with Harry and Nellie for them to let them take all of the children home to Apollo with them to escape this epidemic. Since there would be no school for Amy's older brother Harold, he could stay home and help around the house. Amy's younger sister Thelma was only 2 years old and was safe at home. But for Amy, the parents wanted her to start first grade. So they agreed for her to go with the Mullins to Apollo in order to start school in the fall. As agreed upon, Amy's family brought her to the castle, located at 707 Terrace Avenue, and all around the grounds was the sweet smell of wildflowers. The Victorian home was grand with a veranda that wrapped around the front and side of the house. Trumpet vines covered one entire side of the house. The house had double doors that led to the vestibule, and the porch held large wicker chairs and a swing. Beautiful home.
Oops, sorry.
I would call that a castle too, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
In 1906, members of the Women's Club of the Kiski Valley established the Apollo Free Library. It was located at the Diamond Hall, there it is, on the corner of 4th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. On the night of the dedication, many were in attendance, including Mrs. Rebecca Mullen, Miss Agnes Mullen, and guess who? Miss Amy Snyder. Because of Miss Mullen's work with the youth of Apollo, she was appointed the librarian. Her pay was $12 a month. So there's the old Diamond Hall. The summer after completing 1st grade, Amy returned home to be with her family in Homer City. At the summer's end, Amy longed to return to Apollo. She especially missed her very good friend, Goldie Hall. After much deliberation, it was agreed that Amy would go back to Aunt Rebecca and Cousin Agnes on Terrace Avenue to attend school. Amy continued her education in the Apollo school system. In 1913, Amy's first wood-frame schoolhouse was raised, and Amy returned to school that fall to a new 2-story brick high school. Do we remember that? Yes. In 1918, Amy graduated from high school. She was named valedictorian. She was enrolled in the state normal school.
These 2 pictures were just class pictures. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, no, the state normal school picture's not yet up.
It's not up?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Where she would prepare to become a teacher. It was also at that time that fire destroyed the D.L. Snyder and Son General Store in Homer City. Harry decided to move his family to Indiana, PA, where he opened his new business, the Snyder Pool Company, located at 145 10th Street. And he also purchased a very large mansion. Amy loved the new house. It had high white pillars and special places such as a morning room, a library, and a den. Its location couldn't even be more ideal. From its large front porch, Amy could see Sutton Hall building on the grounds of the normal school. While Amy was away at school, of course, you will learn more about Cousin Agnes. She has a lot to say. Cousin Agnes wrote many letters, keeping her informed about Aunt Becca, the library, and events in Apollo. Aunt Becca and Cousin Agnes belonged to the Women's Christian Temperance Union organization. This group was committed to educating people about the evils of alcohol and its use. A new building was being built across from the Methodist Church where the Mullins and Amy attended. The upstairs of the new building,
okay, there's the Methodist Church.
There you
there's
go.
The WCTU.
And here we are. Would serve as the WCTU headquarters, and the downstairs would be the new home of the fast-growing Apollo Free Library. Miss Agnes Mullen would run the new library from behind a beautiful, large wooden desk built especially for her. And guess what? 19-year-old Amy stood at her side. And there's the building that we are in. Shall I wave at the window or wave at the window? On June 23, 1920, Miss Amy Snyder graduated from normal school in Indiana. She successfully completed all the requirements of the regular teacher's course. She received a certification of graduation and was licensed to teach for 2 years. She had to successfully teach for 2 years and then go before a board of examiners. Once she was approved by them, she received a lifetime license to teach in the public schools of Pennsylvania. There's her normal school again. I actually did the funny thing of going to Indiana because I wanted to see the mansion with the white pillars. Would anyone else want to go see that? Right.
Yes, that is on my bucket list from reading this.
I'm sorry, but you can't do that.
I know it's gone.
It's under pavement
Yeah.
at IUP. All of Railroad Avenue and the mansion, they're just not there.
Yeah.
So instead I took my dog over to see Jimmy Stewart's statue.
Oh.
All summer long, Amy prepared for her first day of school. Once all her pupils were quietly situated in their seats, Amy walked slowly to the front of the class and stood at her desk. With her hands folded at her breast, she smiled and said, "Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Snyder, and I'm going to be your teacher." Each morning, Miss Snyder read from the Bible. Then the children followed her words as she recited the Lord's Prayer. After that, all stood and looked directly at the American flag. With hands over their hearts, they once again followed Miss Snyder to the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. In just a few days, the children no longer repeated her words, but said them along with her. Miss Snyder worked with her church and what was called the Junior League, later named the Methodist Youth Fellowship. She often took them to Oak Hill, where they picnicked, played, and had Bible study classes. Aware that the grove was being used and enjoyed as a gathering place for young and old, Mr. and Mrs. Owens donated the land to be used as a playground and picnic area. In 1921, the area became known as Owens Grove. How many have been to Owens Grove? Many, many, many times. Many, many. In the winter of 1925, Amy suffered a great loss. She sat at the bedside of Aunt Becca. Hour after hour, she read her favorite passages from the old family Bible to Aunt Becca. On April 25, 1925, Rebecca Jane Crib-Smalley passed away at the age of 91. Amy lost her wonderful aunt who had been such a positive influence on her life. This is really a story next here. Soon after Aunt Becca's death, Miss Snyder met a little girl named Elaine McDonald. Amy was walking home from visiting friends on the corner of Warren Avenue and South 3rd Streets. She stopped when she heard Elaine crying. Elaine's mother and father had passed away within 3 years of each other, and the little girl was living with her Aunt Zola. Amy gave Elaine a reassuring touch and kindly told her everything will be fine, and she meant it. Walking home and pondering the sadness of Elaine, Amy decided she was going to have a talk with Cousin Agnes. You see, Agnes and Elaine's great aunt had been close friends for many years. After days of discussion between Cousin Agnes, Amy, Zola, Zola's husband Henry, and Elaine, it was agreed that Elaine should have a new home, a permanent home, for as long as she wished. Before the summer's end, Elaine settled into living in the beautiful Victorian home on Terrace Avenue. I could cry and go there too. With Cousin Agnes being the librarian and Amy's influence as a teacher, Elaine quickly became a great lover of literature and a very good reader. Elaine became involved in Miss Snyder's Sunday school classes and Miss Mullen's Junior League youth group. She enjoyed Christmas and Easter holidays as much preparation and fun was always present during those times. In the summer of 1928, many changes took place. Harry A. Snyder moved his wife Nellie to Syracuse to enlarge his school business. But Amy's younger sister, does anybody remember her name? Little Dottie did not want to go. She came to Apollo and lived with Amy. And it was so nice. Amy, Dottie, and Elaine walked to school together. But at the end of the school year, Dottie moved back with her parents to New York. Now, I wasn't going to say this little part, but I'll tell you a little secret. Dottie used to sneak downtown, and Dottie had some boyfriends. Dottie was not the same character as Amy. And guess who didn't like it? Cousin Agnes. Amy joined her family in New York many times during the summer. Her father always came for her in his Buick, and they drove a day and a half before reaching New York. But the ride was always worth it. Amy was a lover of outdoors, and she enjoyed swimming, boating, and fishing. She especially enjoyed beaches and basking in the sun. And I hate to say the word, Adirondacks. She went there, actually mountains, and she went there and always enjoyed it there. And thanks to Sue, we have this little picture here. In the spring of 1937, Miss Amy Snyder and Miss Agnes Mullen sat in the auditorium for commencement of Elaine McDougall. Elaine's plans were to attend the Indiana State University in the fall, just as her mentor did. Her major, teaching. Like her mentor, Elaine accepted a teaching position in the Apollo school system upon graduation from college. She taught there for 2 years, and then she married and she moved to Greensburg. There she taught in the Hempfield School District. She had a little daughter, and she named her Rebecca Ann. On September 29, 1943, suddenly, without warning, Amy's father passed away. The family was crushed.
That's Elaine. I missed 2 slides.
Whoops.
There's the high school, and there's
She graduated. Elaine graduated.
From the high school.
Okay, and then we have
there's
Elaine.
I was listening to your story. I was so caught
You're
up.
so human. But in May of '44, Nellie Moorhead Snyder also passed away. They were married for 46 years. So she lost her parents. They were only in their 60s, versus Aunt Becca lived to be 91. Miss Amy Snyder faced life difficulties with strength and courage. As said by her friends, she always carried herself with poise and grace. Even in her own sorrow, she was always there to give a word of encouragement and a helping hand. Her faith kept her strong as she continued to always be excited to go to church on Sunday mornings. And one of her friends said, really, she almost skipped to get there. Amy's kindness and unconditional love was exemplified when her brother Harold died before the age of 50. Very sad. Amy's family did not approve of Harold's marriage, which did not last, and he was dismissed from his job at that grocery store that the Snyders had. His only family contact was with Amy. She made arrangements for his uninsured hospital care to be paid for. His funeral, his transportation, and cemetery expenses were taken care of by his beloved sister. Amy alone accompanied his body to the Oakland Cemetery in Indiana. He was not even buried in the same cemetery as the other Snyders.
They really disowned him
Yes,
for marrying someone he was in love with, that they didn't feel was appropriate.
right. And as said on a page that I didn't put in here, but they said that marriage was one hullabaloo in that family. At the age of 82, Cousin Agnes made arrangements to sign ownership of her home over to Amy. On August 15, 1949, for the amount of $1, Miss Amy Mullen Snyder became the owner of the beloved castle on 707 Terrace Avenue, Apollo, PA. At the age of 85, Agnes Mullen continued to work as librarian. She was alert but frail. She called on Amy to fill in for her often. At the end of summer of 1952, Miss Snyder sat in for Miss Mullen at the library full-time. Miss Agnes Mullen served faithfully as the Paulus librarian from its beginning for almost 45 years. And there, that was Amy.
Yeah, that was Amy.
Yeah. In February 1953, Cousin Agnes became very ill with pneumonia. A sad mood filled the old Victorian home where she lived for more than 50 years. One very special person in Miss Mullen's family came to sit with Amy and Cousin Agnes, Elaine McDonald, Johnston. She returned from Greensburg and sat at Miss Mullen's bedside. On February 22nd, 1953, Miss Agnes Mullen passed away. More than 200 mourners passed by Miss Mullen's casket as she lay resting in her parlor. After the passing of Miss Mullen, the position of librarian was offered to Miss Amy Snyder. With pride and a great deal of honor, she accepted with affection that seat, held so long by her dearest cousin. Just as Amy's cousin wanted, Amy remained strong and maintained her usual busy lifestyle after her death. School by day, library by night and Saturday, as well as church and her missions work. It all went on. Time had changed so many things for Amy. She moved on and will now be teaching second graders. She now spent her summers with her two sisters who lived in Florida. In November of 1955, as librarian and chairperson of the Women's Club, Amy brought in Dr. Lois C. Blair to speak on the topic of today's teens. They discussed values, health, religion, and what should and should not be expected of today's teens. We could have her again. On January 3, 1959, Amy witnessed another milestone in the history of the Paulus school system. A new single-story elementary school building opened on Oak Hill. Amy's walking distance from Terrace Avenue remained the same, but instead of going down the hill, she went up the hill, the very steep hill. At 58, Amy went up the hill as quickly as she went down. So many things have changed, but two remain the same: the little children and Miss Snyder. Miss Snyder continued to walk with Grace up North 2nd Street Hill. The sidewalks were uneven, and she carried books, magazines, and construction paper. Young children always tagged along with her. After school, Amy walked home, had a bite to eat, and went to the library at the WCTU building. During Amy's life, she attended many ceremonies. One special one was the 50th anniversary celebration of the life of the library in 1961.
That's not the next picture.
At the start of the new school year in 1961, Miss Snyder was 61 years old. She was now one of two first-grade teachers. She was considering retirement. However, she met a special little boy. At her request, the little boy with special needs was assigned to her. He had cerebral palsy, which affected his speech and walking. Not a good picture, but you can see that that is him. Miss Snyder thought it was very rewarding and wonderful to have the opportunity to have this little one in her class. She wanted to do all that she could do to make a little boy's life a little bit more pleasant. On the year's first progress report, Miss Snyder commented how well he had progressed. At the second marking period, she recorded, David has improved 20 points. On the third period, she recorded, David made a high average on his primer test. At the end of the year, she commented, average in reading, and he was promoted to grade 2. After teaching and mentoring David, Miss Snyder did consequently retire June 24, 1963. Cards and letters and gifts of congratulations were stuffed in her small white mailbox, which I saw yesterday. for weeks following her retirement. On Friday, May 10, 1963, a smiling Miss Amy Snyder graced the front page of the Apollo News Record. An appreciation dinner was held honoring her devotion and work for the children in the Apollo area. Another newspaper called her Citizen of the Year. One afternoon in the spring of 1964, Miss Amy Snyder had a special visitor. Can you guess who? Elaine! They talked about days gone by. Elaine and her husband owned a summer cottage along the Clarion River. Knowing Amy loved the outdoors, Elaine invited Amy to come and just relax and do nothing. In June, Amy greeted Elaine at the door, packed and ready to go. At the cottage, Amy walked the banks of the river in her bare feet. She sat on a huge rock near the cottage with Elaine's Cocker Spaniel. There really is a dog over there. But that was her. I like what is said next. The dog leaned against Amy's legs as it sensed her love for animals. She placed her arm over its back. Elaine caught the sight in her camera while thinking how 64-year-old Amy seemed so forever young. At the end of the vacation, Elaine said, "We must do this again." And they did many more times. By 1964, the library in the WCTU building had outgrown itself. Plans were being made to build a new library. As Miss Mullen once worked diligently moving the library into the WCTU building, so did Miss Snyder labor in preparation for the move to the new library. A new location was chosen on Pennsylvania Avenue with a new name, the Apollo Memorial Library. Amy was present at the groundbreaking ceremony. And we decided that this is her, right here.
No, the one beside.
Oh,
The
no,
one
it's
next
the
to her.
beside.
Count four in. 1,
1,
2, 3, 4.
4.
Yeah.
You think that's her?
That's her. Yeah.
That's what we thought. Yeah. I did say I can tell because of the straight legs. Okay. On May 22nd, 1966, the new library held its official dedication as Miss Snyder took her place behind the old desk of Miss Mullins that was moved from the old library to the new. At the age of 69, at a slower pace, Miss Snyder was happy to walk to the new library. Tragedy struck Miss Snyder in 1969. The library board ruled that no one past the age of 70 could serve as librarian. Miss Snyder was crushed. She was still an excellent librarian, and she still had productive years to come. She was forced to leave what she loved most, the library and all the children, young and old. With her heart broken, she left the library for the last time on May 20th, 1970. For 64 years, she had been part of the library. Clear back to the dining building. When Miss Snyder got home to her castle, Minuet and several of his companions greeted her. He purred softly near her face. Others brushed gently around her legs and feet, waiting to be fed. Miss Snyder drew deep within herself and stayed inside her home. Her neighbors saw the devastating change in Amy. They informed her sisters Thelma and Dottie, who now lived in Florida, that Amy was becoming forgetful. The sisters made many coaxing phone calls to Amy to ask her to please come stay with them for the winter. Amy did go to Florida and stay the winter, and then she returned back to her castle in Apollo. Amy's social life was talking to a few neighbors and taking walks to Polly's drugstore. Few visited Miss Snyder in later years. The pastor of her church stopped as much as possible, and Meals on Wheels delivered meals to her. By 1974, Miss Snyder was more forgetful. Some neighbors thought she may have suffered a slight stroke. She seemed to draw deeper within herself, as though little, if anything, outside the walls of her home mattered. The white mailbox overflowed with mail. Her regular walks to the bank were now a thing of the past. By 1975, dear Miss Amy Snyder had become that of a complete recluse. Friends began calling Thelma and Dottie again, telling of Amy's situation and their fear for her safety. She should no longer be left alone. In the summer of 1975, Thelma and Dottie came to Apollo together. They convinced Amy that she should spend the winter back in Florida with them. With a reluctant heart, Amy went to Coral Gables in Florida to be with her sisters. Life was lovely because Miss Amy had visited so many times that she had a vast number of friends there. When spring arrived, though, Amy did not return to Apollo. Her health would not allow it. Her health continued to fail. However, she continuously spoke of going home. She lost all track of time, and by 1981, she could barely leave the house. The mere mention of Apollo found Amy talking as though she had left just yesterday and that she would return tomorrow. In all probability, it was doubtful she knew that 6 years had gone by since she left her beloved home. On a cold December evening, the three sisters sat reminiscing of God and bygone days. Smiling, Amy closed her eyes and said, "I never realized how important it was to have sisters. I am so glad mine are here. They mean so much to me." Still smiling, she took a deep breath and nestled deep within her comfortable warm chair. Quietly, Thelma and Dottie left Amy to rest by the flickering fireside. The book, of course, the book in her lap provided a resting place for her hands. On that evening, December 14th, 1982, Miss Amy Snyder passed away. A private service was held for her at Coral Gables, Florida. We're ready for part 2. Excuse me. It might surprise you. While I was in high school, I had changed my name. I changed my name from Amy Gertrude Snyder to Amy Mullen Snyder. It was the appropriate thing to do. Now, I would like to share some memories with you. My first memory has to do with the family Bible. There it is. There's Aunt Becca with the Bible. She read to me all the time. And it reminded me that when I was about 3 years old, the memory, with the help of my mama, told me at 3 years of age, every night the family gathered in the parlor for devotions. And I would bring the big family Bible opened. And I would stand right in the middle of that room, as erect as I could, black curls down the sides of my face, long nightgown to my tiny little ankles, and of course, bare feet. I pretended to read. And to make it really authentic, I would just look back and forth, reading and reading and reading, reading and reading until I thought I should be done. And at that point, my family would applaud as I took that big, heavy Bible back over to my papa and left him finish the devotions. Yep. Now, when I got to Apollo, my Aunt Becca and my cousin Agnes told stories to me all the time. And they were a great aid to me in my transition to living with them. And let me tell you, make-believe was very important to me. Yep. That house itself, you know, it just lent itself to the stories of castles and kings, or knights on horses. I love those stories. And make-believe, sometimes I was the princess, or sometimes I was Rapunzel, because after all, I had long braids that went clear down past my waist, and I had my own tower on Terrace Avenue. Why wouldn't I be the princess? When I was 6 years old, my Aunt Becky was so proud of me. She called and had a photographer come straight to the house. When he came to the house, and of course, we were in the parlor, my aunt, of course, had the Bible, and I listened intently and watched her. And right then the photographer snapped our picture, which we only got yesterday from the writer of the book. Snapped the picture. It was developed, brought to the house. That picture was hung on the wall between the fireplace and the back window, and it hung there for over 85 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, this next little story, you know, we all have our little quirks about our houses and the rooms that we like, and, you know, we want privacy when we're reading. Well, I chose the bathroom. When Aunt Becca would go to bed and Cousin Agnes would go to bed, I would just go into our little bathroom and shut the door, and there was a little wooden chair in there, and I would sit there and put my bare feet up on the side of the tub. I would sit there and read for hours and study for hours. And they worried often that I wouldn't get enough sleep for school the next day. And then they always told me, you know, if you could, you would read 24 hours a day. That was the bathroom story. Now, I'd like to tell you a story about a party. Want to hear about a party? Good story. We all know Samuel Jackson's house, right? She was invited to a party to Samuel Jackson's house. She and her good friend, Goldie Hawn, were both invited. So, in fact, it was Aunt Becca bought a brand new dress. And we were going to walk up Terrace Avenue. And right when it was time to go, guess who came into the room? Do you know who it was? Yes. Cousin Agnes came in and said, I shall escort you to the party. Oh, yeah, right. So that she did. We went to the party with Cousin. We got to the bottom of the stairs, and Cousin Agnes said, I'll be back later to pick you up. I waited till she was halfway down the street, and I said to Goldie, you know, I love that cousin. But boy, is she embarrassing. She treats us like little children. So Goldie, with a twinkle in her eye, said, I know what let's do. Does she know what time the party's over? I don't think so. Well, we're going to leave a little bit early. So all the events that make for a wonderful party took place, but before it was over, they had a knowing look to each other, and they thanked the Jacksons for the party, and they got their coats, and right when I was going to open the door, knock, knock, knock on the other side. Who do you think? There she stood in her black dress. Oh, that Cousin Agnes, I'll tell you. So for years to come, we laughed and laughed, not about anything at the party. It was about Cousin Agnes. Well, you may wonder if I ever drove a car or could have driven a car. Well, my papa offered to buy me a car. And I said back to him, oh, Papa, what would I do with a car? I would be scared to death. And I wasn't going to say this part, but I said, I might kill somebody. So that was the end of that. And I told him, I said, you know, I can walk in town anywhere I want to go, or I can take a train, and I always have you to take me where I need to go. And he did. He came down many, many times and took me to New York. But sadly, in 43, when he passed, that part was over for her. I'm going to tell you a quick story about Uncle Sam's farm. Papa and Mama decided that all the girls should go to California. Now, how long do you think that would take in a 1923, 1922 Buick? I looked it up. You know, Buicks back then could hold 5 people, but it would take 8 hours to get there. But Papa wanted to go to California. On the way in Kansas, we stopped at Uncle Sam McDonald had a farm. Sam McDonald. It's his farm. And the first thing I remember is they had all these animals, and they had work horses, but they had this one old mare. And she could only walk very slowly. And Uncle Sam brings that horse up to the porch and says, all 3 of you girls can get on that horse. Well, of course, I was the smallest, so I got on the front, and there was a rope to hold on to, and there was the mane to hold on to, and then little Dottie was behind me, and then Sister Thelma. Well, that old mare, she ain't what she used to be. Took us all over that farm, walking, we're riding. For some unknown reason, that horse started to trot so fast as the horse trotted up and down, up and down, and up and down we went, and it had a mind of its own. It did not stop until it rounded the farm, came to the front porch, and halted. And when it did, 2 girls were on the ground, and I was on the side. That horse had to stay in the pasture the rest of our time there. The other thing that I remember about that farm was, you know, Uncle Sam would say to my papa, you know, there's a really handsome fella on this farm. Really handsome fella. And I thought, I haven't seen any handsome individual here. And on the days we've been here, I haven't seen anything. So we're, Papa and Uncle Sam were sitting on their rocking chairs. And they get up, and Uncle Sam says, come here, I'm going to show you the handsome fellow. Very handsome. Come on, Harry. Come on, Amy, let's go. Well, we headed for the barn. We got there. Uncle Sam was a little bit ahead of us. So when we got there, he's over in the corner, and we finally approach him, and he looks up with this big grin on his face and says, Harry, Amy, I want you to meet Handsome. He's going to win us a blue ribbon at the fair. Handsome was a 300-pound pig. Oh, the fun we had there. You might be interested to know a little bit about, I guess I can say this, our love life or marriage, or you want me to talk about that a little bit? I do have in my story that, okay, I'll tell you. Okay. I was about 23 years old, and I met a man who also lived in Apollo, and we became friends. And in fact, he would come to my castle, and he would sit on a swing near the kitchen in the back on the porch. We talked about many things, current events. We both had different churches, the people that we knew, and we just really enjoyed each other's company. And I began to feel something different. And instead of, I didn't tell you his name, did I? His name was Reverend Roland Woods. He's a preacher. But we got to like each other, and we got so comfortable. Instead of Reverend and Miss, we became Roland and Amy. Well, school was over, and it was summertime. And of course, back then, I was still going up to my papa's, and I went to New York. And guess who came to see me in New York? Roland. I had a bathing suit on, and I can prove it. If you see that picture downstairs, you can flip it over. And my family member said and wrote it. Roland came to see Amy, and I think they had a picnic. And we did. Yes. We really enjoyed each other. Well, in the fall, I came back down to Apollo, and I continued to see Roland. He was a fine, fine gentleman. But one of my relatives kept a keen eye on the situation. Who might that be? Cousin Agnes kept a keen eye on the situation. In fact, she really didn't like it at all. She saw the change in me. I was a different person when I was around Roland. So she had a dreadful fear that my relationship with Roland was going to grow and we would maybe get married. She had such a fear that one night she confronted me and she told me all of her fears. Amy, do you really think that you could be a minister's wife? You know he has a church out near Philadelphia. Do you really think you could move away? And besides, who would take care of this big house? But with big crocodile tears coming down her face, the most important question, what will become of me? So, I told Roland we could continue to see each other, but our relationship could not grow any further, and that there was no future for us. It was very sad. I made my decision. Some say if it wasn't for Cousin Agnes, my life would have taken a different path. Perhaps. Perhaps. Just to let you know, I taught in the Apollo School District for 42 years. And my gentleman, Reverend Roland Bortz, pastored the same church for 43 years out near Philadelphia. His congregation grew from 177 people to 700 people. And if you want to know, yes, he did have a wife. This is a funny story. This is going to be the last memory I'm going to tell you about. It's about a little boy. It was the first day of the new school year. I walked down my steps, going onto the sidewalk, and just as I did that, 3 little boys were walking up, greeted me. The smallest of the 3 said, "Are you going to school too?" And I said, "Why, yes, dear, I am." And then he said, "Well, what grade are you in?" And I said, "Oh, dear, I'm not a student. I'm a teacher. I'm Miss Snyder." And now, Miss Snyder was my first grade teacher.
Oops, sorry.
And I'll just tell you, I'm in the front row. I'm not the boy. I'm not the girl, I'm the second girl. Her gentleness and her love has stayed with me throughout my life. When I was about 12 years old, I lived across the street, right there, right across the street at 312 North 2nd Street, right there where the arrow is. I would come off that porch and I would come over to the library, which is right downstairs, and I would put books away from Miss Snyder. Yes. And she just taught me so much. And at the end of the night, without a word, she would slide her hand across the desk and lift it up to show me a quarter that was mine for my work. You know, one time I checked out a lot of books. And you know, you had a due date on those books. And something happened if you didn't bring them back. You had to pay 2 cents per book, right? I didn't bring the books back on time. I didn't stop coming to the library, but Miss Snyder one night came over to me as I was putting books away and said, if you just bring the books back, you won't be charged. What a relief. What a kind lady. Do you think she kept my quarter that night? No way. That was not Miss Snyder. I want to leave you tonight with a few verses from Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient and love is kind. Love does not envy, does not boast, it is not proud. Love is not self-seeking, and love keeps no record of wrongs. But love always protects. It always hopes. It always trusts, and it always endures. That is the description of my mentor, my friend, Miss Amy Snyder. Thank you.
Wendy, would you introduce Lynette, please?
Are you Lynette?
Yeah. Oh, Wendy, that's Lynette.
You're Lynette. Stand up here. Come here. Oh my gosh. I didn't know you were Lynette. Oh, it's nice to meet you.
They're going, who's
Who's
Oh,
Lynette?
we have the picture of the house. This is Lynette's house.
This is what she's done. This was in 2016, and this is the house today, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I'm so happy.
It's a work in progress. But yes, I bought this house.
Oh.
And I can tell you, there's so many similarities to Amy and myself. I always said, when I was in, this is a dear friend of mine from grade school and high school, well not high school, she moved here, but I went to Kiss. And I always said, because in my family we have teachers, I am not going to become a teacher. I want to do anything. I want to make money. I never have made lots of money. Let me just tell you. But I will tell you, I work with people with intellectual disabilities. I work with people, and I teach them. And you know, it's very interesting. And you know, just little things that she said. You know, there's if you look on my porch, you'll see a bunch of wicker furniture. If you go in one of my bathrooms, you'll see a wicker chair. So all these little things I'm hearing, and I'm not married. So you know any single men out there? Okay. No, but it's just, I just found when I first walked in this house, I was like, this is exactly what I've always wanted. And at the time, I kept, you know, when the house was for sale, I kept seeing, and I'd say, I don't want a Victorian house. I want a colonial house. I want bricks, and I want this, and but then as soon as I walked in the house, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Oh.
And I feel that way every day. And right now, I'm still working in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in the area, and because my brother and my sister are still here, I said, you know, maybe I should move back. So here I am, 61, and I'm going to be moving back and bought a Victorian house.
We're glad you did.
I feel privileged, honest to Pete, I really do.
When will you start giving tours?
Oh, yeah. I'd love to. Anytime anyone wants to help me unload boxes.
Good
How
idea.
about I need a staircase built? Anyone know a good carpenter? Yeah, as the gentleman Alan can tell you, he had been in the house was original. From the person who last lived in the house, from her family, Amy's family, to then the next owner, Michelle, and her husband, or boyfriend, had remodeled and kind of updated a lot of things and so forth. So a lot of things have been changed. And a lot of things are more modern. And I'm very old-fashioned. I mean, I don't believe in reincarnation, but I think I'm from way back, you know? And so there's some things that, like, there was a library in that house. There isn't a library anymore. And I'm a big reader, too, also. And but I can tell you, there's a big kitchen, there's a big dining room, and there's a big living room. Then there's 3 bedrooms, and of course, a beautiful turret room. And that turret room is like a little office for me. And
Did you say the tower?
the tower? Yes.
Okay.
The turret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I was not allowed to use tower for the newspaper. Why? I don't know, it's not a correct word to use.
It's turret, okay.
Yeah. T-O-R-R-E-T. And if we're French, we would probably say turret. I don't know. But yeah, it's, so like this is a bedroom. This is the master bedroom here. And there's a single door now. And where she said a double door. And I would have liked a double door better. But it's okay. But I still have a beautiful foyer. Or a foyer. And this wraparound goes to a door here, and then there's this door, and then there's 2 in the back. I should have brought my cell phone. You could have seen more pictures. But it's such a warm house, and I have to say it has to be because of the people who lived in it. You know, I really believe there's a certain spirit that resides in a house, and good things came out of that house. And I just really feel so privileged. I really, really do.
Excuse me, it's really true when Amy says she went down her 4 steps.
Oh yeah, this is something new. I don't even know who did this.
Oh, that's the drain project that they're doing around town. The
They
high,
never told me.
the high school is doing drain, some kind of a drain project.
I thought that was ridiculous. I almost ripped
I'm
it
not
off.
quite sure what about it
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the letters flew away. Oh, it says this. What does it?
Something about flowing to the Kiski
Yeah,
River.
this drain goes to the river. That's what it says. This
Yeah.
drain. I'm like, okay, who cares? I'm like, and I thought, well, maybe they wanted the water to drain well. Well, they didn't sweep around it, but they put that on there. And I was like, okay, I'm only here on the weekends right now. I'm not going to let that bother me. So it's still. So this is a recent picture.
Wednesday.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, from the time Miss Snyder passed away to the time Michelle bought that house, there were quite a few years of destruction?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I could give you some of that, and that is a sore subject to me, because some of the things that they did, where you see wood here, I'm sure that was stained glass.
That
Because
was.
if you look,
It
yeah.
was stained glass.
Because if you look down the other streets, and he knows, Alan can tell you more than me. And this is my first time meeting Alan. I am so excited to talk to you. There is a great big 41 inches of round glass, would have been, and that was stained glass.
Yeah.
That is the beat of my heart. That breaks me more than
That's in the book downstairs.
yes,
The picture of it.
there is a slight
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see the colors. I want to know what would it look like.
Yeah.
They came in and they ripped out a lot of the woodwork and a lot of the trim and they also took out the stair rail. It's gone, totally gone.
Amy.
That was Amy's niece that did that.
Yes, and
Thelma's
Amy's
daughter.
sister's niece came and took out what I guess she thought she could sell.
She said they were incorporating it into a house that they were building, but
Oh.
that's what she told us. But
Well,
I think they were selling it.
Maybe, but still, she should have never done it. She destroyed, to me, I hate it when I hear about buildings being torn down for an apartment complex or for this. I mean, there's so much history and so much beauty. You can't find people
Yeah.
today to even paint your house, let alone
That's true.
who have the skill and the craftsmanship. I mean, try to buy stone. I mean, you just can't. You just can't. So that's just a little heartache for me. But I'm trying to restore what I can and to make it what I think it would be. But I know Alan, he's been in it, so he's going to tell me all the good stuff. So, but I could rattle on and talk to you all night long here. You have other things to do.
What we'd like to do now is if anyone else would like to share some memories of Miss Snyder. I was not in town at that time. I missed her completely. But if any of you have any memories you'd like to share, I'd like to open it up. Go ahead.
I lived on South 2nd Street, and on the evenings that I'd come to the library, Mom would walk me across the highway, and Miss Snyder would stand around the corner and watch and make sure I got here safely. And then she would call my mother and say, I'm sending her home, and to make sure that I got back to safely. Many happy evenings here.
Anyone else?
Amy taught me in first grade. But teaching what they taught back then and what kids in kindergarten are doing now, I think the thing I learned in first grade was to tie my shoes. And be social.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It wasn't now. Pre-kindergarten.
Yeah.
Pre-kindergartners. No, they're out of that.
Yeah. That's true.
She was quite a teacher.
I would like to know.
I've been in her house quite a few times because I lived down on 11th Street and used to walk by. And I'm getting my years mixed up because I didn't think she was alive that long.
Well, she'd be gone too.
Well, yeah, that's probably
Yeah. We tried to find where she was buried. We have an obituary for her. I actually sent an email, and when he called the Coral Gables Funeral Home down in Florida, and they don't have records of it. It was too long ago. To me, 82 doesn't sound that long.
No,
apparently, So, but they also told, I think, Wendy, you said that she may have been cremated, had a private service and been cremated. So we don't know where, we couldn't find anything.
Because hardly anybody was cremated back then.
back then, yeah.
Now, who gets buried? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So we were able to find several of the graves. Agnes's and Agnes and Rebecca's and whatever. We just couldn't find her anywhere. So anyway, well, if there's no one else, we do have a friend. Oh, go ahead.
When I was 26 years old, the house was being sold at a sheriff's sale at the Armstrong County Courthouse, and my mother sent me to bid on it for her, but we didn't get it.
Oh, it would have been nice though.
She really wanted it, and I was always really sad that the niece ripped out the stained glass.
You must be Ann from the newspaper.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Hi, Ann.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I have had more people come up to me, strangers to me, that have said, I always remember that house walking to school.
Yes.
I always remember that house from when there was a old lady that lived there. And I'm like, really? And so it's just, this is incredible. And you were incredible.
Oh, she was.
Yes,
Yes,
I think that's what I'm talking about. Are you a teacher?
No.
Okay.
No, I just love her.
Yes.
But I want to say thank you because the other houses on Millionaire Avenue are broken up into apartments. And to keep that a single dwelling is, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Columbus for the past 42 years. And for me to come back to Apollo and the Vandergrift-Kiski area is just remarkable.
Good.
And I just feel that I'm supposed to be. And I'm supposed to be in this house. And it's like, it's given me this purpose to do what I can to restore and to make it. And I already tell people, I'm living and dying in this house. So I just want you to know, I'm never moving again.
We'll all be over for tea and crumpets.
Well, I will invite you because I have tea parties. So that's what I'm saying. I'm so Victorian. I really am.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you knew my personality, the way I dress, I mean, you would think, because I used to have real long hair, and I always used to put it up in a high bun, like a Gibson girl kind of thing. So people, so when I bought this house, they go, that so suits you. That so suits you. And I'm like, really? Duh. Really? Of course it does. It never occurred to me, but it is.
Yeah.
So it's
have
great.
to become a member of the historical
Oh, I
society.
am. I
Oh,
want
yes,
to.
yes.
I
You
want
haven't
to.
yet? Okay.
So I
Tonight, we'll
yeah.
get you, okay. You're not? Okay. Yeah.
No,
All right.
that was one of the things I wanted to do when I bought the house at the end of December, but when I bought it, I got this book there.
Where
And
did
so
you get the book from?
Yeah.
Michelle, who was the previous,
She had a copy of
she
it.
had this
Because
copy.
we have a copy of it, now we have the original,
Now,
right? Is that
now
right?
you have the original, and
Yeah,
I
and
would
the
love to
scrapbook.
have a copy of that, couple of those photos.
Why don't you mention about
Oh,
Ron?
talk
a
about
little
Ron
bit,
and-
a little bit about Ron.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah. Oh,
yes.
yeah. We have to give homage to him.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Can you put that house, where are you, sir? Put the house back up on there?
The most recent.
Either one, either one.
Okay.
Just, I have to do this together. Is this sweet? You can't see it, but here she is, Our Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just tell them how this
Yes.
happened. I just loved Amy, and I just wanted to tell what I knew about her and her love and her character. I had no idea that 30 years ago a person wrote the whole book, as told to him by her sister Thelma. It's
And
over
some
300 pages long,
Yeah.
written. Here it is.
Handwritten.
I put the cover over it because I didn't want to.
We have it. Well, I have my own copy now, but
It's all single page,
this is all handwritten.
handwritten.
All of this book.
And there's some pictures in it, that's some of the
Yes.
poor quality pictures
Yes.
were from the
Yes,
book.
but really, this presentation belongs to Ron.
And I think he was in
Ron
love with
Edwards,
her. I mean, when you read this, the love and the dedication you
Yeah.
hear in this, I'm like, this man's in love. And not mind you, he married someone else too. But
Yeah, he
I
loves
think
her.
because he even says there were many suitors who would love to have
But
married
he
her.
was much younger.
Oh, okay. But he
Right.
still
He
loves
was
her.
a student,
Yeah,
but
but
he
he
did love her.
definitely loved her.
But he saw her character, and really truly, she had the character of Christ. She protected, and she loved, and she never sought out for herself.
No.
She was the most giving person I ever knew. But anyway, I wanted just to tell what, and I only knew this much, and I came here and here this book was written about her. So really, this is Ron's presentation tonight, not mine. It's because of him. So here, he lives clear up in Austin, PA, near Powders Point, Port. Alan was looking at an article from a different book, and he found that man's name in this. So I Googled his name and got his phone number and called him. Lo and behold, he came the wrong night. He came yesterday. He came yesterday, and his wife has bad health. It was 4.5 hours to get here, so he couldn't come back. But what a wonderful man. He preserved her, really, all of this.
He's 81 now?
He's 81.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 81. But the whole book itself, we hope one day to get it published. And I asked, did he want an acknowledgement that I could notarize his name and make it legal? And he said he doesn't, whatever. His children don't care about it like we do. But he gave his original handwritten book, and then a scrapbook that has the original pictures instead of these
copies of those.
Yes, so I have some on my phone now, but anyway.
And Wendy came out last night and said, I've got more pictures to put in the PowerPoint. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
we were
it
still
just
doing it
yesterday.
Yeah.
It was wonderful though that she was a fine lady. They don't make them like her anymore. Just a godsend.
She's a good example for all of us to follow, though.
And to think, really, she was transplanted here from Boulder
Yes.
City.
That is what is such a miracle.
Yeah, we had such a gem among us from someplace else. And so we were just blessed.
And on that note, there are refreshments downstairs. If you'd like to look at the book, you can have it. Go ahead and mingle, enjoy yourselves, and thanks for coming.